Hello everyone! The future and the position of the Forsaken is in a rather interesting place right now for the story, and the war within might connect to it, might offer a solution.
What are we if not slaves to this torment?
So when looking back at the Forsaken where they started, it all began with those that fell to the plague, to Arthas and the Lich King. The events of Warcraft 3, which saw the fall of Lordaeron, Quel'Thalas, a whole bunch of death and destruction. But to the Scourge, death was not the end. They were compelled to serve once more. Until the Lich King was wounded, his powers started to wane. And in turn, his servant Arthas lost a bit of his control. This allowed people like Sylvanas Windrunner to rise up and turn against him. But her desire for vengeance, instead of simply taking the kill, it allowed Kel'Thuzad to jump in and save his beloved king. No matter, vengeance would come another day, and Sylvanas would have to prepare. There were others able to regain a sense of who they used to be. There were those she specifically went out to liberate and recruit, like Nathanos Blightcaller. All of them were welcomed into the Undercity and became part of the Forsaken. Forsaken by the world, by friends and loved ones who saw nothing but the monsters they'd been forced to become. Standing alone in the world of Warcraft is rather lethal, so Sylvanas reached out, found an allegiance amongst the hordes. The Tauren even thought once upon a time that perhaps they could help the Forsaken. Perhaps they could help find a cure for the undead, but that story never went anywhere. Instead, the Forsaken became one of the most powerful forces amongst the hordes, earning their ranks, even bringing the Blood Elves into the fold. Wrath the Lich King then came around, and the one reason, the one big motivation which brought all of the Forsaken together, it was finally completed. They managed to claim vengeance upon Arthas the Lich King in his full might and glory. At the top of Icecrown, the former Prince of Lordaeron was slain, and while victory was earned, where exactly did that now leave the Forsaken? All this time, their story, their road to walk, it had a clear destination in mind. And with her quest finished, Sylvanas decided to jump. What joy is there in this curse? None whatsoever. And so she threw herself upon the Serenite spikes down below, ending her undead torment and abandoning the Forsaken. This is the point in time where the story becomes a little bit complicated, because the story of Sylvanas, it's gonna go all over the place and be given different motivations. Ultimately, it would be revealed that she was in league with the jailer and the whole arc that played out during the Shadowlands. But if we reverse the clock and take it one step at a time, we now see that Sylvanas ends up in Hell, Warcraft's version of it, and her motivation changes into doing whatever it takes to stay out of this hell. Her Forsaken, as they described it back then, were turned from arrows in her quiver to be shot off at her targets at Arthas, into her bulwark against the infinite, the wall that stood between her and her ultimate fate. Someone like War Chief Garrosh Hellscream was not going to be throwing away her Forsaken, so she took charge of the assault upon Gilneas. But it did leave her with a problem. In order to keep that bulwark nice and juicy, she was going to need to produce more units, but the victims of Warcraft 3, they were kinda running out. Forsaken can't reproduce, and so she needed a new way of unit production. In come the Valkyr, warrior maidens once tied to Arthas the Lich King, that had made a bargain with Sylvanas. They would take her place in Hell, basically become her bonus lives, and would allow her to create new Forsaken. In exchange, they would be free from Bolvar's control.
Disgusting is the only word I have to describe it.
War Chief, without these new Forsaken, my people would die out. Our hold upon Gilneas and Northern Lordaeron would crumble.
Have you given any thought to what this means, Sylvanas? What difference is there between you and the Lich King now?
Isn't it obvious, War Chief? I serve the Horde.
Watch your clever mouth, bitch!
New Forsaken, all loyal to the Banshee Queen, mainly aimed at serving her and keeping her alive. But, of course, to the Forsaken, time also goes on. They're not just cardboard cutouts that don't live their undead lives. They are part of the Horde, they are part of the Forsaken. They have a place in the world of Azeroth with their own stories and connections. A theme that was rather interesting to explore, that was the idea of, why do the Forsaken keep on going? Being undead is not exactly a picnic. What joy is there in this curse, after all? A curse that Sylvanas is actively placing upon new units. Some of the Forsaken, they're actively replacing their body parts simply to just keep on going. And if you keep moving like this, eventually replace all your body parts, what is left of the person you once were? These were all really interesting subjects to consider from the Forsaken point of view. For Sylvanas, she went after the power to create more Valkyr, which presumably for her would have been more bonus lives, more Forsaken generated. But that plan was prevented by Gent Greymane during the Expansion Legion. Then another plan was made, reuniting Forsaken with their living loved ones. A meeting in the novel before the storm that went horribly wrong, as Kalia Menethil, sister to Arthas Menethil, she was allowed to be present during this meeting, and she was recognized. The Forsaken were having such a wonderful time that they didn't want the day to end, so they asked Kalia to stand with them, help them defect from Sylvanas, go back to the Alliance. Instead of taking any sort of political route, Kalia was like, yeah, let's go. Let's just run away, run towards the Alliance. Which was an opportunity for Sylvanas to just start shooting everybody down. The defectors, the Forsaken tried to go home, Kalia herself. None amongst the Alliance were hurt though. Sylvanas wasn't ready to start that war quite yet. But the reunion was a failure, and Kalia was dead. Not for long though, as through the lights, Anduin, Alonce's Val, and the Naru Sara were able to bring back Kalia. Not as a Forsaken, not as a Death Knight or an Undead that we've seen before, but something new, an Undead forged through the lights. Kalia Menethil, the Pallet Lady, did not need the Plague or the Valkyr to return as an Undead. A new path was created to keep the Forsaken storyline going, to offer a new path for new Forsaken units to be created, especially since the story would then move on. Sylvanas would be sentenced to play Shadowlands forever, and the Valkyr have been slain. Meaning that there are no Valkyr allied left to resurrect more Forsaken, and meaning that the whole following Sylvanas as a motivation for the Forsaken, that's also been removed, at least for the moment.
Power to the Forsaken.
Which leaves a bit of a vacuum in the story, and this is personal interpretation, but I think that they were originally planning to have Kalia replace Sylvanas. I think this because in the novel Exploring Azeroth, there was this whole storyline about finding the bloodied crown of Lordaeron. Derek Proudmoore is also called Champion of the Pallet Lady, parallel to Nathanos being called Champion of the Dark Lady, as well as following Kalia and a new way of being resurrected that would offer the Forsaken a new motivation and a path to follow in the story. That is, of course, my interpretation. I don't know if it's true or not. What I do know is that Kalia was not well received. I'm honestly confused who thought it was a good idea to make Sylvanas the war chief and then one of the big bads to begin with, considering how much of a beloved character that she is. But that's neither here nor there. You know, point being, the Forsaken are now led by a council, several voices amongst the Forsaken being represented in the form of Kalia, Lillian, Farinel, Belmont, and Velonada. That, however, still leaves the problem of how do we prevent them from dying out? And perhaps they're now bringing the idea of Undead forts in the light, as some datamite models from the War Within seem to be doing just that. Risen Arathi are shining bright in the light. Within Hollowfall, we'll come across these light-wielding Arathis with a big old crystal in the sky that's swapping between light and dark. They're also gonna have lighthouses and airships fueled by sacred flame. Plenty of story related to the lights. It could simply be that this area is so infused with the lights that they're now unable to bury their loved ones. And the lights, it's indiscriminately bringing them back. The models remind me a lot of what we saw with the Venfeir during the Shadowlands that stayed out too long in the lights. Regardless if it's with a purpose or if it's accidental, the point still stands. We have a variation of the Undead walking around. No Plague, no necromantic Valkyrs. These are walking, light-infused Undeads, which might be the future for the Forsaken as a whole. Obviously, with all things related to the War Within, we don't know for sure as we're dealing with alpha stuff and datamine stuff, but it's interesting to consider what the role of the Forsaken might be going forward. Imagine if the Light acts in a similar way as the Plague or the Lich King did before. Could our liberated Forsaken, with their history, with their experience, could they be given a storyline in which they need to help liberate these poor Light-forged undeads? This could easily be connected to Yrl and a Holy Light Crusade on alternate Draenor as well. There was this Janissar that quickly popped up during one of the previews, and Janissar, I believe they came with us during the Magar recruitment scenario. The Light only recently fully converted a Scarlet Crusader into a Light Elemental, and while nobody seemed to really care or react to it, that moment was absolutely huge. We also have Lofraxion, a Light-infused Dreadlord, supposedly allied to the Army of the Light, but now we know where the Dreadlords originally came from and how they've infiltrated different cosmic domains. The Shadowlands storyline, with different cosmic domains going at each other, and the light burning part of Revendreth was really cool to see, added depth to what we know of these powers so far. While the voids might whisper and try to corrupt, the light has also been shown to want to dominate and control. What has it done to the Arathi stuck down below? How is this cycle of light and dark affecting their mentality? We already know that part of the Arathi are not going to be our friends, so I'm super excited to see what's going on here. I'm super excited to see what these light-infused undeads are all about. And for the Forsaken, what path might they have in mind? Will we see them simply reverse the clock and release Sylvanas from the Shadowlands after her time served? Or will they invest the time and dedication to expand into something new and give the Forsaken a new outlook on life? In an expansion that's going to be all about light versus darkness, light versus voids, who wouldn't want someone infused with the light on their side? I'm really curious to see how these models are going to be implemented. The last two zones are definitely ones I'm hyped about. But yeah, now you know too. So thank you very much for watching, everyone. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Subscribe and ring the bell to be notified of future uploads. And until next time, see ya!
Before I take my leave, Margrave, may I speak to you concerning the nature of undeath?
You will find no one with greater knowledge on the subject than I, mortal. Proceed.
The Forsaken were raised through necromancy, and this shared origin has provided them a sense of unity. I, however, was raised by the light. That difference has caused me to wonder if I can ever truly find a place among them.
Necromancy is the art of animating unliving flesh. Here in Maltraxis, we use the magic of death to accomplish our craft. But whether these rituals are empowered by death, or light, or any other magic, necromancy is necromancy. You perceive a difference where there is none, child.
Then perhaps I have found my purpose. Thank you, Margrave. Your perspective has been a great help.